Humans once nuked their own sky just to see what would happen. The room froze. 50 alien students, scales and feathers, and bioluminescent patches flickering, stared at the lone human standing at the front. He didn't look dangerous, just a tall young man in a slightly wrinkled uniform, brown hair, calm eyes, and that tiny smirk that made the whole class uneasy. His name was Daniel Reaves, and he was the first human ever admitted to the Galactic Exchange Academy, an institution orbiting the third moon of Vorthus Prime, where future leaders of 100 species were trained. Today's class was xenobiology, and Professor Chur, a massive arthropod with mandibles like knives, had just asked every student to present their world's apex predator. The presentations had gone as expected. The Relathi displayed a scaled beast with 6 jaws and acidic saliva. The Marn showed footage of a floating, jelly-like entity that devoured prey with psychic waves. The Talaxan student proudly described the desert burrowers that could eat an armored transport whole. Then it was Daniel's turn. "Human," Professor Chur said, clicking its mandibles. "You come from a Class C planet, yes? Oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere, unstable tectonics, severe seasonal climate. What is your apex predator?" Daniel rested his hands in his pockets, considering. "That's a tough one," he said. "We had a lot." "A lot?" Chur's antennae twitched. "Most worlds sustain a single dominant predator. How many could your kind possibly—" "Hundreds," Daniel interrupted, grinning. "Tigers, sharks, wolves, crocodiles, bears, eagles. Each one could kill us." Some even tried. Nervous laughter rippled through the classroom. The Yuden student, whose species resembled luminous crustaceans, raised a claw. "You lived among them." "We had no choice," Daniel said. "We learned to track them, to fight them, to steal their hunting grounds. Then we built cities where they used to rule." "You exterminated them?" asked the Marn in disbelief. "Not all at once," Daniel said casually. "But eventually, yeah. We replaced them." The air grew quiet. Professor Chur made a low clicking sound that might have been surprise. "So you are saying your species became your planet's apex predator?" Daniel shrugged. "That's the polite way to say it. But you lack natural weapons. No claws, no armor, no venom." "We have something better," Daniel said. "We have curiosity." The class didn't know what to make of that answer. For the rest of the session, they kept glancing at him like one might look at a weapon with a safety switch that could fail at any moment. Later that day in the academy mess hall, Daniel sat with 3 classmates who had warmed up to him. Tira, a small, blue-furred veil with 3 tails, Hroth, a bulky lizard-like Gron, and Leni, a translucent cephalopod who communicated in flashes of color. Tira poked at her nutrient gel and said, "You know, you really scared everyone in class today." "Good," Daniel said, chewing on something that resembled bread. "Fear keeps people curious." Hroth snorted. "Think it keeps them away." "Either works." Leni pulsed faint orange, which Daniel had learned meant laughter. "You humans are strange. You study predators, you fight them, then you admire them." "We're good at mixed feelings," Daniel said. The next day was Combat Strategy 201. It wasn't real war, just simulations. But the Academy treated them seriously. Each team was given a holographic war scenario. Daniel's group was assigned to defend a colony world against a numerically superior invader. The others began setting up defense grids, energy shields, orbital mines. Daniel immediately deleted everything. "What are you doing?" Hroth hissed. "We'll be slaughtered." "Not if they don't know where we are," Daniel said. He programmed the simulation to evacuate surface life signs, scatter false energy readings, and broadcast fake distress calls from decoy satellites. Then, while the enemy fleet descended toward the traps, he had his team strike from behind with improvised rail slugs fired from asteroids they'd reprogrammed as kinetic weapons. When the scenario ended, the holographic invaders were dust. Professor Kor, a gelatinous instructor known for being impossible to impress, stared in silence. "You sacrificed your colonies and your atmosphere," Kor finally said. "Uninhabitable afterward." "That's fine," Daniel said. "We can build another." "They can't build a second fleet." The room buzzed with shocked whispers. Later, Hroth asked, "Do humans always think like that?" "Pretty much," Daniel said, "winning first, fixing later." Rumors began spreading again. The human could strategize like a warlord. The human didn't blink when entire simulated cities burned. The human was smiling when he launched asteroids. But Daniel wasn't violent. He was just honest. Humans had always survived by being clever and ruthless when necessary. It wasn't aggression, it was adaptation. A few days later in Galactic Sociology, Professor Chur revisited the subject that had started it all. "Mr. Reaves," the professor said, "after reviewing your cultural history and predation records, I have one final question. What is humanity's apex predator today?" The room went completely still. Daniel didn't answer right away. He looked around at the alien faces, creatures with claws, tusks, wings, mandibles, and armor, and smiled that same unsettling smile from the first day. "We are," he said quietly. "Humans are the apex predators now." A low murmur rippled through the lecture hall. Some scoffed, others shivered. "You expect us to believe that your fragile species could defeat the apex hunters of the galaxy?" Chur asked. Daniel leaned forward, elbows on his knees, voice steady. "We don't need claws. We have imagination. We don't need venom. We have chemistry. We don't need to run fast. We make things that fly faster than sound. Every limit we have, we cheat. Every rule nature gave us, we broke." The room was silent except for the faint hum of the holo projector. Daniel smiled again. "So, Professor, the answer's simple. The apex predator on Earth is human, and the apex predator in space." He stopped there, letting the silence stretch long enough for the question to hang heavy in every mind. "Well, we'll find out soon enough." That night in the Academy's private observation decks, Daniel stood alone watching the stars. He could see the silhouettes of distant ships, drifting lights across the void. Somewhere out there were civilizations thousands of years older than Earth's. Civilizations that thought humans were primitive, soft, harmless. He smirked to himself, remembering the tigers, the sharks, the wolves. Earth had been full of monsters once, and humanity hadn't just survived them. It had learned from them. 3 weeks after the apex predator debate, Daniel Reaves found himself standing on the Academy's northern training fields, watching rows of alien cadets practice formation maneuvers. The exercise was meant to simulate planetary defense coordination, but most of them looked like they were learning to dance rather than fight. A few instructors hovered nearby, shouting corrections in half a dozen languages. Daniel stood with his arms crossed, silent, analytical. The others had learned by now that when the human was quiet, he was thinking of something dangerous. Tira jogged over, fur bristling in the chill morning wind. "You're doing that thing again," she said. "Which thing?" Daniel asked. "The thinking while smiling thing. The one that makes everyone nervous." He shrugged. "They should be nervous. The formations they're using would collapse if someone hit them with orbital artillery from the dark side." "No one's attacking us, Daniel," Tira said, rolling her eyes. "This is just a training exercise." Daniel gave her a side glance. "Everything's training until it's real." That line would come to haunt the Academy before long. A few days later, during advanced systems tactics, the alarm sirens went off. At first, everyone thought it was another simulation, but then the red emergency lights flashed across every corridor. An unknown fleet had breached the outer defense perimeter. The instructors ordered all cadets to remain in designated safe zones, but Daniel ignored it. He hacked the console, pulling up the Academy's long-range sensors. The ships weren't pirate raiders or smugglers. They were organized, precise, moving in military formation. "Who are they?" Hroth asked, his scales darkening. "Not anyone friendly," Daniel muttered. "Their signatures don't match any of the known member races." "Looks like someone new or old," Tira said quietly. "The instructors are saying it might be the Vale Dominion." Daniel frowned. "Never heard of them." "Most haven't," Hroth said. "They're rumored to be an isolationist empire beyond the Outer Rim. Everyone thought they'd vanished centuries ago." The comms crackled. "All cadets report to shelters immediately. This is not a drill." Daniel turned off the channel. "We're not going to a shelter." "You're insane," Hroth growled. "What do you think you're going to do against an invasion fleet?" Daniel looked at the holographic map, watching the red dots swarm toward the Academy's orbital defenses. Learn. He ran down the corridor, his classmates following against their better judgment. They reached a sealed observation deck overlooking the planet below. The orbital defense satellites were already engaging, bright flashes erupting across the void. The Academy trembled as distant explosions rippled through the upper atmosphere. "They're targeting the orbital ring," Leany pulsed in alarmed yellow. "That's where the Academy's main energy grid connects." Daniel scanned the system logs. "Then we take control of it before they do." "You can't override the planetary defense network," Tira said. "That's military-level authorization." "Good thing I brought my own key." Daniel pulled a small device from his pocket, a human-made data spike. He'd built it months ago just to see if he could. Within seconds, he had access to the defense controls. Alarms flared as he bypassed layers of alien encryption that no one believed a human could even read. "You're not supposed to do that," Leany said weakly. "Yeah," Daniel replied. "I'm noticing a pattern." He rerouted control of half the orbital guns to manual command and fed their targeting data through the Academy's simulation computers. "They think they're fighting an automated defense grid," he said. "We'll make them fight ghosts." On the holo display, several of the enemy ships suddenly redirected their fire toward non-existent targets, wasting volleys of plasma. Daniel used the distraction to redirect actual cannon fire toward their carriers. 3 of them went down. The aliens around him stared in disbelief. Tira whispered, "You just took out capital ships with school computers." "Technically," Daniel said, "the computers did it. I just taught them how to lie." Over the next hour, the Academy's defenses held longer than anyone thought possible. Students were being evacuated, while Daniel coordinated the counterattack through systems not designed for combat. Professor Chur eventually stormed into the control room, mandibles clattering furiously. "Reaves, you are committing a violation of interstellar protocol. Stand down." Daniel turned from the console. "Sir, if I stand down, they'll glass the Academy. I like learning too much to let that happen." Chur froze at the tone. It wasn't arrogance, it was certainty. "You're not authorized to lead a defense, Ubaano." "Neither are they authorized to invade," Daniel said. The professor hesitated, then surprisingly stepped aside. "Very well, human. Show us what your species has learned from its predators," Daniel grinned. The alien instructors watched as he coordinated every satellite, drone, and defense cannon into an unpredictable pattern of assault. The Veil ships began to falter. Their formation broke, their flanks exposed. Daniel struck again and again, never the same way twice. "He's treating it like a hunt," Roth whispered. "He's making them react instead of plan." "That's the point," Daniel said. "Predators win by control. Hunters win by chaos." Hours later, the fleet began retreating, but Daniel didn't let up. He tracked them as they tried to warp out and used the planet's magnetic field to scramble their exit coordinates. Several of their ships vanished into empty space, lost forever. When it was finally over, the defense systems powered down, and the Academy's orbital ring hung scarred but standing. The cadets cheered, but Daniel wasn't cheering. He just stared at the retreating ships. "They'll be back," he said quietly. Professor Chur approached him. "You just coordinated the defense of an interstellar facility using improvised tactics and hacked systems. How did you know what to do?" Daniel smiled faintly. "I told you before, Professor. We had a lot of predators back home. You learn a few things when everything wants to eat you." "You could have been killed," Tira said. "Yeah," Daniel said, "but then I wouldn't get to see their faces when they realize what they fought today." "And what did they fight?" Roth asked. Daniel looked out the viewport at the stars beyond. "A student," he said, "for now." Over the following days, the Academy became a fortress. Military ships from the Galactic Council arrived, scanning the wreckage, questioning everyone. Daniel was questioned the most. Some praised him. Others accused him of provoking escalation. He didn't care. He was too busy analyzing the enemy's tactics, studying every fragment of their technology. When Tira asked why he wasn't celebrating, he said, "Because they underestimated us once. They won't do that again." The council decided to assign defense liaisons to every Academy division. Daniel was offered a role in the new Strategic Command Initiative, a polite way of saying they wanted the human mind on their side. He accepted, though not for prestige. He wanted to understand who the Veil really were. and why they had attacked. Late one night, Daniel accessed restricted files about ancient Outer Rim expeditions. He found references to the Veil Dominion, an empire that once ruled over dozens of systems before vanishing after contact with a lesser species that refused subjugation. No one had ever identified that species, but the description of their tactics, adaptable, unpredictable, merciless, sounded disturbingly familiar. Daniel leaned back in his chair, realization dawning. Humanity might not have been the first to teach the galaxy what a real predator looked like, and maybe the Veil remembered. The Veil Dominion returned 6 months later. This time they didn't send scouts. They came with a fleet so vast it darkened the stars. The Galactic Council prepared for war. Every species mobilizing defenses across dozens of worlds. The Academy, once a place of learning, had become a command hub. Daniel Reaves stood in the war chamber, staring at the tactical map that filled the room with crimson light. Alien officers spoke in overlapping languages, their voices anxious and fast. But Daniel wasn't panicking. He was focused. He'd spent months preparing, studying, and designing countermeasures based on everything he'd learned during the first attack. When the alarms blared, Daniel was already moving. "They'll hit the orbital grids first," he said. "Same tactic as before. They think we'll fight them in open formation again." "And we won't?" Tira asked, now wearing an officer's insignia. "No," Daniel said. "We're going to let them in." The aliens looked horrified. Professor Chur's mandibles clicked in shock. "You plan to allow an invasion? That is madness." "It's strategy," Daniel said. "Predators don't fear prey that runs. They fear prey that bites back from the inside." The Veil ships entered orbit, their weapon arrays glowing like suns. Within minutes, they overwhelmed the first defense lines, just as Daniel expected. But when they descended toward the planet, their sensors detected no military installations, only what looked like abandoned settlements. It was bait. Daniel had converted entire regions into energy traps, their fields disguised beneath decoy habitats. When the Veil troops landed, the traps activated, releasing waves of electromagnetic pulses that crippled their equipment. Then the skies opened. Human-designed rail platforms, constructed in secret with alien assistance, fired dense tungsten rods from orbit. The impact waves rippled through the invaders' landing zones. Daniel coordinated the strikes from the ground command center. Phase 1 complete. Phase 2 released the decoys. Across the horizon, holographic armies appeared, thousands of false targets projected through atmospheric drones. The Veil fired at ghosts while real strike teams, composed of mixed species under Daniel's command, flanked them. It wasn't just a defense anymore. It was a hunt. "You're using their own tactics," Tira said. "No," Daniel replied. "I'm using ours." He ordered atmospheric fighters to drag the enemy into lightning storms generated by weather control systems. He rerouted orbital satellites to focus sunlight into concentrated beams that blinded the Veil targeting sensors. Every move was unorthodox, unpredictable, human. The other commanders couldn't keep up with his pace. He didn't fight like an officer, he fought like a survivor. As the battle raged, Daniel noticed something strange. The Veil fleet wasn't just attacking the Academy. They were targeting communication nodes, trying to cut off the species from one another. He realized their goal wasn't victory, it was domination. "They want to make us kneel," Daniel said. "Then we'll show them what standing looks like." He transmitted an open broadcast across every military channel, human voice echoing through the static of the war. "This is Daniel Reaves of the Galactic Exchange Academy. To every soldier, every pilot, every sentient being who can hear me, don't fight to protect what you have. Fight to protect who you are. The Veil think we're prey. Let's remind them how wrong they are." Across the galaxy, fleets rallied. For the first time, alien species coordinated under human command. The skies burned with light as allied ships jumped into the system, answering Daniel's call. The Veil fleet met them head-on. The battle lasted 30 hours. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't clean, it was brutal and desperate and alive. And when the last Veil dreadnought fell into the planet's gravity well, Daniel stood silently at the viewport, watching it burn. The Academy was damaged, the ground scarred, but the system was safe. Hroth limped into the command center, battered but grinning. "You did it, human." Daniel shook his head. We did it. How did you know they'd fall for it? Tira asked. Because they never learned, Daniel said. They thought power made them hunters. They forgot that intelligence makes predators. The silence that followed was almost reverent. The Galactic Council soon declared the Veiled Dominion dissolved. Their remnants scattered into deep space, avoiding any sector marked by human ships. The Academy rebuilt slowly, its once academic halls now filled with both soldiers and students. Daniel returned to teaching, though every cadet now looked at him as something more than a teacher. When new recruits asked about Earth, about the creatures humans once feared, he always gave the same small smile. They taught us what it meant to survive, he said. The rest of the galaxy taught us what it meant to lead. And when one brave cadet asked him what humanity's apex predator was, Daniel just looked out the window at the stars and said, "Still us." Did you like today's story? Then catch our post at 3 p.m. Eastern Time daily. Unfold more intergalactic stories with Professor Space.